Hello there, Seraphim17 once again. This is my ReCore walkthrough. You might notice on the description slash title of the videos I missed a K, and I've not been able to check the comments in a few days because I've been quite busy. So I'd like to thank everybody who pointed that out and enabled me to get that fixed. Some people think, you know, that they're just making jokes. Other people think that they're pestering, but it's actually really important to get that kind of information because I don't want my videos to be misrepresented, and I always want them to be presented in the correct way. So, this is our first endeavour into prismatic core hunting, and we're doing it quite early because we've just got Seth, and Seth enables us to get some interesting stuff. Right then, I picked up a chest in one of the first areas of the game. If you're new to ReCore, one of the core tenets of its gameplay is that scattered around the area there are these chests that generally have armour in them, and the armour goes onto your companions and it makes your companions incredibly strong. The only drawbacks to some of the armours are that they require a certain level to be worn. If you are at that level, you want to put them on because they will almost always be better than what you are using, and they enable you to focus on either having high energy, high attack, or high defence, or a mixture of the three. I personally always go for attack, because you know me guys, I like to do damage. This right here is a zone that can only be done with Duncan, so make sure that you swap to Duncan and break it, and you'll notice inside here is going to be that universal symbol of a prismatic core, which is this kind of circular cocoon metallic casing that we get it from. And that's what we're going to be doing, just moving around these areas, picking up a couple of cores, and I think at this point it wants us to go through the shifting sands to get to the dungeon that's called the Warren, and that is the dungeon that precedes the Eden Tower. But the Warren requires a certain amount of cores, and because it's in an area that is filled with dungeons and new opportunities that are rather high level, I've come back here because it's a little bit easier to just get some quick momentum. For instance, we've got another pile of rocks to break here for Duncan, and a couple of standard enemies. That right there was me countering an enemy doing a rolling attack by using the anchor, but did you notice my life? I'm almost certain that when you do that technique, you take mandatory damage, which, once again, I've already explained in a previous video that certain aspects of this game that I feel don't make a lot of sense, and that is definitely one of them, as we take on this metallic centipede sphere creature, which is a really fun opponent. The only issue I have with this particular enemy is that when it decides to come bum rushing you, there's not really much you can do unless you've got enough shots off to stop it. It's another one of those problems with the game where it feels really difficult to get away from things, and I like to be able to dodge stuff. You know, I take pride in being able to dodge things when I play certain games, and in this game I never feel like the dodge. It's a great dodge too, you know, it looks cool, it gets good distance, but I never feel like it's as useful as it looks. But as I was saying, I don't think you should take damage when you counter correctly with the anchor. I think you should be at an advantage at that point. But for some reason the game still cues it as that you tried to do the anchor before you were meant to, and thus you take a little bit of damage as to disincentivize you from being sloppy. And I completely agree with a punishment for bad play, because I think that's the only way you learn. But it has to be within reason. Coming over here, you're going to come up against your first yellow enemies. If you came here at the beginning of the game, all of these enemies were completely untouchable, because when you shot them, it said resist. Notice how when I shoot them, it says 0 damage? It's because they're a lot higher level than we are. But the good news is, our buddies do considerable damage to them, we can stun them with the charge shots, and then if we can get our combo, we can use the instant, immediate extract, and then it spawns this fella, who is one of the white prismatic enemies, who I believe this guy is going to be, or has been, a boss that we've killed, who looks just like this dude. So, look at that. You see, you know when I tell you that this game can do big damage when it wants to? That did 99% of my life in one hit of a laser beam. And that's big trouble. But, once again, if you're in a position of power like I am there, fishing out his soul effectively, there was not much he could do, but if there was any other opportunity for him to attack, I was dead. And I wouldn't have dodged it, because dodging in this game is, unless it's fire on the ground, which you jump over, unless it's that laser beam and you know it's going to sweep twice, which is the mistake I made just then you put yourself in spots where you're probably not going to dodge it. You know, a lot of the attacks are laboured enough that they hit you when they happen. And it's an interesting philosophy of design as we move back over here to where the pylon dungeon was, and we're going to be going towards, I believe, we might be hitting up one of the optional dungeons as I take on some enemies here and shoot them. But the design philosophy of enemies attacking frequently but having minimal accuracy over enemies attacking infrequently but generally hitting is something I find quite interesting, because I think a game can choose the wrong one and be worse for it, whereas at the same time I think if it chooses the right one it can be so much better. And if you think about it, a game such as Dead Rising, I've been watching Darkside Phil play Dead Rising 1. A lot of you might be wondering, Chris, why come you're not doing a walkthrough for that game? It's just been remastered, just like the Bioshock. The Bioshock, that's what your mum and dad would call it. And the reason for that is because I kind of think the Dead Rising games are a piece of shits. Like, I think they're fun games. I think for the time, they were definitely goofy Capcom making goofy Capcom games, but those games are some of the most rage-inducing, annoying as fuck games I've ever played. I got so mad with the first game, and I played it back when it first came out. I got like 720 achievement points on that piece of shit, and I still hated it. Like, it is a game that is designed to be annoying. Every single design choice in that game is annoying. And to go back to that, when all they've changed is a higher frame rate and a little bit more, you know, polished resolutions, I can't do it, guys. I just can't do it. And I've been watching Darkside Phil do it, and it's been hilarious because he's been experiencing the same things I would have, which is that game was made in 2006, and games that were made in 2006 are very different to games that are made today. And Dead Rising was always a very eclectic kind of game. You know, it really was. If you think about it, 2006, same year God Hand came out. You had God Hand, you had Dead Rising. Those two games couldn't be more different. And he's he's having a spot of bother with it, but in Dead Rising there is a lot of enemies, but they infrequently attack. They infrequently attack quite a lot, and then when they do attack, they tend to grab you quite effectively. And I think that works way better in that game, because this is an exception to the rules that I was speaking about, because it's all indicative of the type of game it is, but I think in that game it works fine, because if everything attacked you all at the same time, it would be really, really difficult, and they would have had to change the way the systems work to enable the player to move around the environments, because it just wouldn't have been possible. You would have needed a vehicle to go anywhere, because the zombies would just maul you, and you would never get away. So in that context, having infrequent attacks that generally do connect, I think complements that gameplay really well. But we've come to the end of the video. I was hoping to talk a little bit more about this, so don't be surprised if you hear a little bit more in the next videos. Thank you for watching, and you take care now.